from a very hot and sweaty England. Welcome back to Charge Attack.
It's disgustingly hot here.
It is so humid. And we've got a few bits of news. We're going to try and keep these segments a little bit shorter in future to give you the information you need without me moaning as much. I think that's the best way to describe it.
Not going to happen.
And there still hasn't been too much of great, important, super big news. But there is still always nice little bits.
Tidbits, yeah.
Yeah, everything that you want to hear, just sort of like you pick up your phone, read it, go, oh, that's nice, and then put it back down.
That's news these days.
That's about all you can get. Final Fantasy XIV is having its own live action series, and it's going to be based off Final Fantasy XIV.
Good start.
Yeah. Who's it created by?
It's the same people doing the Witcher adaptation for Netflix.
So do you reckon this will probably be a Netflix exclusive again?
Netflix originals have been quite good, some of them, so...
It's a good start. I mean, I like the idea of seeing a world that's Final Fantasy-esque. I quite like the idea of that, and if they can do it well, like they've been doing... obviously, the Witcher adaptation hasn't come out yet, so
I've not seen anything
we
for it.
can't compare it, but I have good hopes.
Yeah, they got a lot of good stuff to work with, so...
Yeah,
offer both titles, so...
Yeah, and if they don't follow any sort of story elements of 14, then that's quite cool, because you've then got something new. Mm-hmm. And if they do follow something of Final Fantasy 14, that's quite cool, because I haven't got enough time to get into that game. So it's a win-win for me. Someone like me as a Final Fantasy fan, that's really good and interesting. And it's something I think you should keep an eye out for, and you'd want to see where they go and what they do in the future, especially as more and more video game stuff seems to be becoming more intrusive into the mainstream media. It is like sort of intrusive, like, you know what it's like. People don't really respond well to video games and movies and those sorts of things, but more so recently as they are doing better.
I think this might help get people into the game for it as well.
Yeah.
People watch shit on Netflix they've never seen before, and they'll just put it on, they'll enjoy it. And if it just happens to come across someone who, maybe say like myself, who's never played 14, they're like, oh, the series is quite good, I might give the game a go.
The last thing I need now is another, like, an MMO to get into. It's ridiculous. I mean, they've had a series already before Final Fantasy 14 where it's based in Japan. And what it was about a story about a father and a child, and I believe the father was disabled, so the father wanted to be able to play with his child, and they used to play Final Fantasy XIV together, which is like a really nice, touching story. I don't think this is going to be anything like that at all. I'm hoping that it's not going to be based around people playing Final Fantasy XIV. That's not a good idea.
No.
So it would be cool to see where they take the story, and like... they've got to have a lot of money, I would say, behind backing them
characters
to get this sort of flowing in the right direction. Like, CGI is obviously expensive, and they're going to need a lot of CGI for Final Fantasy.
It's going to let it down otherwise.
Yeah, unfortunately, we live in a very boring world compared to something fun like that. But it's something to keep an eye on, and when more information about that comes out, we'll let you know. So you don't have to go searching for it. That was so smooth.
Cringe.
Other news, though, is EA Access, which we've said before is coming to PlayStation. Has now come to PlayStation.
24th of July.
24th of July, sorry, as it comes to PlayStation. And they've announced prices for England people. English people.
Per month, yeah.
The sweaty people in the humid weather. It's £4 per month.
This is not too bad, actually, seeing as a lot of the other subscription services are sort of over the £5 mark. If you buy
the new FIFA every year and it costs you £50, you're actually saving money here. Because every year you're getting the new game anyway the moment it comes out, because otherwise it's pointless. You don't want to get something 6 months after it's come out, because in 6 months' time you're going to be getting the new
if they're going to release those sort of games on their subscription base, though.
Yeah, that is the horror.
Because that could be, well, it'll come out 6 months later on the pass. Would it be available on launch? So
this is going down the whole route of why EA not doing that. If they
Make
want
money.
to push services like this, which could make them a lot more money to do it this way, I'll download our game rather than us having to send off, get it put on a disc and put into your stores, and then having to pay the retailers and everything. They could actually they could save a little bit of money, keep their players super happy. They've got so many. I guess that's probably where they're looking at it. Is they've got already so many people that will happily pay full price of these games. They don't want to start giving them a cheaper way to play.
Exactly.
Not EA. Any other company, you might sort of just think, wow, that's really nice.
Yeah, they'll take a small financial hit to better their community and whatnot, but EA's like, no, we'll piss them off and we'll charge them for the privilege.
That's basically what Xbox have done. Is their whole Xbox Game Pass now is they're going, look, if you want your games for cheaper, just buy our Game Pass and you get all the brand new first party releases, albeit there's not that many. You get them straight away and instantly. I think that's one of Microsoft's best moves recently, is how well they've been supporting their Game Pass. So EA could have done something really strong there, but they won't, because
they have borrowed from Xbox's Game Pass in terms of you can then buy the games and keep them at a discount rate, which might be handy for some people.
It's handy, but it also kind of defeats some of the purpose.
Because once you've played the game, you might not necessarily want to just then keep it.
Not with the amount that EA released their crap. Because EA are releasing it every year, these updated versions, it's
not necessarily.
Sane people won't do it. There's always someone that will.
There'll be a few games that people would say, oh, maybe in a year's time I want to play that again.
Yeah.
But I can't think of many EA games that people would really, without then like a new variant coming out. But at least people have got an option of keeping what they have sort of semi-paid for if they want to.
Yeah, but if you do have EA Game Pass on Xbox, you're going to have to buy it again on PlayStation, aren't you?
Which is ridiculous.
Yeah. Netflix works really well for the fact that you can, if I want to watch something on my tablet and continue watching what I've been watching on my TV, then you can. Yeah. Like, you don't need to buy it per device. And again, this is where EA could have made a really strong following here, is they could have basically gone, look, you want to play with your mates on your PlayStation, or you want to play with your mates on your Xbox, you just buy our one day pass, or our one-time pass, or our yearly pass. You can do that on no matter what console you desire.
I'd have been more respectful if they said, right, if you want it on both, it's going to be maybe like £5-6 per month for both consoles, but you literally have to buy a whole second subscription for it, which I appreciate. Obviously certain games aren't available on both consoles, but then just say this just don't show it if you're accessing it on a certain console, or just say, fortunately, game not available on this platform.
You can seriously tell, and you always can tell with EA every single time that they've done this for monetary reasons, because they're just sort of like, oh, we can get good money out of this bit here. Like, it's so weird that they've gone along this route, because they could have kept people so happy with their games and like kept a bit of positivity, and EA keep making these stupid steps, and people are ridiculing them more and more, because it's like, when Battlefield 5 was coming out, they're like, oh yeah, this game's not going to have any loot boxes the way games should be, and then literally at the blimmin' parliamentary meeting a couple of weeks ago, and then saying, oh no, they're a crucial and fundamental input into our games. They're getting away with it at the moment, where they're saying one thing and then going back on it whenever more money's involved.
Exactly, yeah, they're picking it up and dropping it when the need suits.
Yeah.
So
EA Access is going to be available for you PlayStation fans. I'm not going to get it because I don't like EA and I don't want to support them. What about you?
I won't bother.
Oh, there we go.
I'm not a massive fan of gaming subscriptions.
No.
I've got Game Pass at the moment because it was £1 for 3 months. And
that's even enough to put you off.
I played Sea of Thieves on it. I thought that's worth £1 for the few hours I got out of it. But
I don't think it's worth £1.
You did at the start.
talking about downloads and everything that comes along with that, Google Stadia have some news for us.
Not good news.
Go on, take us through it.
So they can't say how much games will cost to purchase, but it won't be any cheaper than a console.
So it's pointless to get a Stadia now.
Exactly. Because you're then paying for the streaming platform for doing it.
Yeah.
And then you got them buy the game.
Yeah.
And at which point, then, why are you paying for the subscription?
So, the weird thing with this is for the most part, every time the only way I can see you're going to be saving money here is on what is it? Is basically like instead of paying £10 a month, you can buy a console, or you pay £10 a month. Over the course of 2 years, you would have paid for your console anyway. So you'd have to sort of make that decision. However, if you have to pay full price, you might as well be just putting the money towards getting a console. And then okay, I can just download this game. I can get it, or I can buy it on disc and get it even cheaper. And then you don't have to worry about faffing about internet download rates and everything like that. When Stadia was first announced, we were talking about it. We're just thinking they must be doing this like Netflix, like they must be, because how else are they gonna get people to want to do this?
Exactly.
And they're not doing it like that. That's like, so a good way to compare this is just imagine Netflix, where instead of paying £7 a month, which it is at the moment, you pay £3 a month, but then you have to buy the games that you want to play. Why, if we wanted to do that, we just go out and buy the flipping DVD, or download the DVD from iTunes Store or anything like. Do you see what, like,
you're paying
these
for
options already there?
You pay to like access a library, and then pay to then take from the library. You're paying twice for the same thing almost.
Yeah.
It's like if say Blockbuster was still here, £10 to walk in the door, and then like £10 to take the actual game fucking back out of the door.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, what am I paying for
That's
here?
like the whole reason that like Blockbuster went down is because if I can just sit at home and get the DVD for £5 rather than walk to the store and get the DVD for £10, like you can sort of do a comparison in the sense that Stadia have essentially what they're doing is they're entering this competition, going, you can pay to use our services to be able to pay for our games. Which, when you can have a console and you can just download these things. Again, this is what's going against them, is that we've already had this discussion about the internet connection issues. It's not going to be possible. Like, my parents have just had internet put at their place. Their internet is not that great because they live in the middle of a field. They're going to get a maximum of 10 megabits per second. So the Stadia are telling me, oh well, even at a low connection rate, you can still play our video games just at a lower quality. I would just be more inclined to go, well, I'd rather just download the game, have it at a decent quality, and be able to play it constantly.
And with these, I'm obviously, with this being a completely streaming platform, I bet if you do purchase games, there's going to be no way for you to store them.
It'll all be just linked to your library, isn't it?
Just purchase the access rights, and then if it were then to be deleted or removed from the service, like what happens to your games then? Will they still be available for you to access because you purchased it?
There's a couple of times where like that sort of thing has come to my interest, because Steam has done that a couple of times where a game's just eventually it's just completely died off, and there's no recompense for it. You're still allowed to play, like, say for example, the single player game, but this isn't a downloadable game. You're still able to play like the single player campaign, the offline stuff, but then you lose the online capabilities. And I've never been so obsessed with an online game that I'd be a little bit upset. But say for example, Primal Carnage was a completely online based game, and that gets taken down. It's just sort of like, well, I spent £8 on this, and you're now taking that what I've purchased back away from me. It's the problem with virtual buying, isn't it?
Exactly.
And it's still not any cheaper, which is just ridiculous.
No,
I can understand, because obviously if they make it cheaper, then they're going to put millions of people out of jobs, which is, in a certain way, it's a good move. And you can share them. Just Stadia is just not looking good.
No, they're not offering anything that's like, this is going to be the next stage. This is just seems like a money trap, money pit. You're just going to throw money into it to access games that you have to then buy anyway.
Yeah.
It's like paying for delivery of a video game digitally.
It's barking mad. I genuinely am not looking forward to this console's release, and I don't think it's going to go anywhere near. you know what I mean.
This platform.
This platform's release, and I don't think it's going to go anywhere near as well as they seem to think it is going to.
It's going to fall flat.
Something that will go well, though, is Final Fantasy VII. The remake has been seated or placed and been given a trophy, an award. It has been there's been whispers across the internet, and I think we all saw this coming, as it was the best shown game at E3.
Best of show at E3, yeah.
I mean, what other game? Name one game off the top of your head where they showed in-game details. Name one other game.
I legit can't think of it. It's all just cutscenes or CGI game, like pre-rendered screens and things. So
one of the things we were upset of with E3 is just the fact that they were just showing, oh yeah, look, we've got this at some point coming, and this is something that is on our console, and this is something here. Nobody actually showed us anything interesting, and Final Fantasy VII and Square Enix was way overdue, and they did perfectly what they should have done for Final Fantasy VII, which is showed the intricacies of the combat system, showed how the game is different and how it changes, how it hasn't changed too much from the past. But then what they've done is they've then just gone, okay, and here's a little clip of the first boss fight and how it's going to work, and so it's showing, you're actually showing off the game, and it was great and looked amazing and it was really well done, but that's the sort of quality I was expecting from every single gaming company there with some of their major titles. Like, actually do some interaction. Like, show us what we want to see. Don't just give us another flipping trailer.
Exactly.
I'm sick of them.
Trailers are a good introduction to their games, and then give us some gameplay or something. Show us what you like. What they did with Final Fantasy, showed what they have done with it so far, and then what they are still doing going forward. And
that gives people a good, clear image as to what's happening with the game and where it's going. Because since that conference, any arguments anyone has had for Final Fantasy VII's remake are now invalid, because people were worried about this, that, and everything else. They've addressed all of that in this one little press conference that took up 25 minutes of their time, and it won an award or won the recognition for being the best in-show game. And it was the biggest surprise announcement is still Breath of the Wild 2 for me, or whatever that game's going to be, because nobody was expecting that as far as I was aware, which is cool. But I mean, Nintendo have got so many fingers and so many pies at the moment. I need them to start showing me some of these made pies. I have no idea how this metaphor goes.
Then.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, they said they've got Metroid Prime 4 in the works. They said that they've got Bayonetta 3 in the works. They say now that we've got Breath of the Wild 2 in the works. Like,
this Link
I know you've got them in the works, and they are very big games, and I am very much looking forward to them. You just come on, like, get Bayonetta 3 and Metroid Prime 4. Get them out there, get them done and dusted. Let them. Those two games are going to be coming out next year. I reckon both of them.
It's
I reckon Bayonetta will be March next year. Sorry, May next year. I reckon.
Please let it be.
And then I reckon Metroid Prime will be November next year. And once they get those two out, then start letting us focus more on Breath of the Wild 2, and because at the moment, it was a really cool reveal, and this is. Again, we won't talk too much about E3. We've done enough of that as it is.
Yeah.
But that's they're adding on to their game list of games. Oh, this is going to be coming out at some point. It's like, great.
Just don't stretch it too far.
Just come on, let's get something good out at the moment. But just before we finish on Final Fantasy VII, is at E3 they did announce and show Tifa, who has also been brought now to Dissidia NT, which is basically the national version that came out on all the... If you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you're not going to be that interested. Assassin-style character, nice and quick in there, punching blows, usual sorts of moves and whatnot. I mean, Dissidia's got a bit of a small but dedicated fan base. They're all very good.
I'm sure they'll appreciate it.
And it is good fun. If you're a massive Final Fantasy fan... If you're somewhat of a Final Fantasy fan, then it's something that you could pick up relatively cheap and have a bit of fun with. But other than that, I wouldn't say it's something to go out of your way for. It's just they've done well marketing this. They had this build up for Tifa for E3. Now that E3's over and done with, they just thought I'd remind you that Tifa exists.
We're gonna cash in on this bitch.
Kratos in God of War.
This surprised me reading about this. I was legit surprised this was even contemplated in this boardroom of apparent idiots.
Yeah. For a game that came out that was so unbelievable and incredible, this is the sort of news that you wish you never would have read. They were at some point considering that Kratos shouldn't be in God of War because of his anger and his anti-hero persona.
There's no place in video games. But there are so many anti-hero things out there at the moment.
Yep.
And that are doing very well.
Yep.
And why suddenly? Because he's so angry and violent, does he no longer have a place in... It's like Deadpool is like the prime example of this in the film industry. And in like the games that he's had,
where everybody just sort of thought, "Oh no, we don't want to be releasing those. People aren't that interested, or whatever reason."
Okay, so that's like not everyone is massive into the whole superhero and like whole justice and goody save the day sort of superhero.
Yeah, people like realism, and I think that's where, especially in the new God of War, he was more of a realistic character. In the first 3 games, he was over the top angry and ridiculously tear people in half, murder people left, right, and centre for no odd reason. But that was in a gaming era where you were playing the game for fun, not for the story as much. The story is obviously still interesting, but those sorts of games, you're like, oh yeah, this is quite. Look at me, I'm mowing down people of Greece and Athens and all of that. And they made an amazing step for Kratos in number 4 or the new one, where they made him a more respectable character. He is still an anti-hero. He is still a brute. He is still horrible and nasty and, in a lot of cases, a villain. But it has been toned down enough that
it's not
you have more respect for him.
Yeah.
And this is where they did quite well. Because he has a son, it's almost like you get the feeling they did it for that reason. However, when they announce something like this and they say something like this, you get the feeling that it might not be for that reason.
How can you make God of War and then remove him without giving another character, which would still kill the whole God of War story games anyway?
It's at that point where it's like, if you're even considering, like, Kratos doesn't fit into this sort of regime, or... Is that the right word? I feel like that sounds like something that Hitler would have said, regime. Like, they... just create a different IP. If you don't think he fits in, or you don't like the idea of making a game like that these days, don't put him in. I bet you they're fucking glad now that they brought him in, with how well that game did. Literally one of the best games of last year.
Character development is...
No, it was Game of the Year.
Character development is an essential part of video games, but not to the point where you fucking develop them out of the fucking game. Their characters need to progress and change, yes.
Yeah.
The first 2 games, he was very angry because he was going through the same shit situation over and over again.
Yeah.
But now, I'm sure a bit of time's passed, he's got a son now, he's going to be a slightly different person.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's fair enough. He's developed, he's changed,
Do you know what, the whole time leading up to that game, and even after it got released, because I didn't play it straight away, I genuinely was convinced that it wasn't his son. I was just sort of like, that's not his son, I reckon. It's like, he just calls him boy. I'm not telling you who the mother is because it spoils the game.
Okay.
Yeah. I was going to say neither of us spoke then. We just sort of went, oh no, we'll
I was trying to think
leave it at that.
Which Greek goddess has he not killed yet?
It's one of those, again, this is one of those subjects that you could talk about for eons, because essentially it's what video game creators perceive as what we want when they don't know what we want. If you genuinely thought that we didn't want that sort of character, when people beg for God of War, want a God of War 4, when God of War 3 is left at such a cliffhanger that you're just sort of like, well, in fact, almost a literal cliffhanger, because it shows a cliff and he's gone.
Is he hanging?
He was hanging his way down there. I don't know. Like, people like that character. You can't then just, even the fact that you're considering changing a character just based on, oh no, it doesn't fit into modern day times and modern day video games. So don't.
Then why did they remaster God of War 3 for the PlayStation 4?
I don't know.
Exactly. So their argument is invalid by their already previous actions.
Yeah.
He's not valid in this day and age or whatnot. But we'll remaster him. We'll make him look nice and shiny.
Yeah, we'll make him look. We'll upgrade him onto the more current console. But then this is where it gets obviously again more in depth and more confusing, because people would argue then, well, no, you do that to appeal to the fans that liked him previously.
Mm-hmm.
So okay, so then why don't you bring out God of War 4 to appeal to the fans previously? That
if you want to appeal to a God of War fan, give them the God of War. Don't give them.
They had a very strict and very hard character to deal with Kratos, and putting him into a fourth game, and they executed it perfectly. And it saddens me a little bit that I read something online where they were saying, oh, at some point we weren't considering going that route. And you're like, I'm glad that they didn't, but I'm just a little bit sort of concerned. Why would you even think that? It sounds like you're a little bit out of touch. Maybe being out of touch is a good thing in a lot of senses.
Oh, yeah.
But just hopefully from that they've learnt their lesson that they're wrong, so that when they make the next
They're
God of War...
They're not listening to community feedback if they have this sudden idea out of their heads that it's not needed, when everyone else has no one said that. So, but thankfully it was shut down.
It came out all right.
Yeah.
And whatnot, and they would have learnt from it that this character and this day and age, we want people like Kratos.
Exactly.
The new Kratos. And
do you reckon there'll be a fifth?
oh yeah, I won't spoil anything, but yeah, there'll definitely be a fifth.
Okay, cool.
I hope.
Oh,
but yeah, I definitely think that.
But he could be like a hippie.
Oh yeah, he just grows out his hair for once rather than being bald all the time.
Yeah,
it's not possible. But anyways, Sword and Shield Pokemon is not going to be allowed. Is not going to be allowing you to transfer all of your Pokemon from prior games to it. So, say for example, they haven't gone into full depth and details as to how many exactly and whatnot. But by the looks of it and the way things are going, it's probably only about 500 out of the possible 950 Pokemon that are going to be available
in the game,
are actually going to be in the game. And you cannot transfer, say for example, if Trubbish isn't in the game, but you've got him in your Pokemon bank by some means and you want to transfer him in, regardless of whether you can catch him or not in the game or in Sword and Shield, you will not be able to put him in the game. Loads of people are upset by it.
Interesting decision to make.
It's upsetting for those people that have a favourite Pokemon that isn't going to be in that repertoire of first Pokemon. Other than that, it encourages different play style, which I quite like.
Yeah.
They need to start hacking it down a little bit because they are getting a little bit too over the top. But then it's sort of like, it's how when a new generation is implemented anyway. Most of the time, or in some of the game's cases, say for example Gen 5, in that game, all the new Pokemon that were introduced, every single new area you went to, there was only new Pokemon. You could only play with the new Pokemon until you got to the very end.
I'd be okay with that personally.
I'm okay with it, you're okay with it. I think a lot of people are okay with it, but there is still a significantly larger amount of people that are going to be disappointed that they can't have their favourite Pokemon in the newest game, especially when this is the first proper game that is RPG main game series that's been brought to console. Could have seen it in all its 3D and beautiful glory, and you can't have your favourite. Could be a little bit of a sting.
They could at least implement where you can bring it into a certain degree, like into like like the Go Park or something, like with Let's Go.
Yeah,
something
but
like
that's the thing is obviously they don't. And when there's 950 flipping
that's a lot
Pokemon,
more character models to put in.
There is a lot of character models.
I can understand why they didn't do it because there's a lot of work potentially that might not
that
be
could have
required.
taken away from other parts of the game.
Exactly. Yeah. So I appreciate this. What they're doing with this, I understand why they're doing it.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna be heartbroken.
It's just something, just basically to give yourself a warning. If you're looking for that specific Pokemon, unfortunately, you're just going to have to put up with the fact that...
If you're that dead set on one Pokemon, then why are you playing any other game?
Yeah, so a lot of people were concerned, thinking that like these sorts of Pokemon are then going to be like cut from like other games in future, and it's just no. That's never going to happen. It's just in this game, in this instance, these Pokemon are available. Chances are what they'll do is when they release the next installment of this series, so
they might rotate in another lot.
Like you know how you had like yellow, red, you had red and blue, and then you had yellow. It's like the penultimate of that series. So in this sense, you might have Sword, Shield, and then you'll have Pokemon Mace or something like that. And then I know that's a weird weapon choice or whatever. But then like you could have the other load of Pokemon, and then it's missing some that are in Sword and Shield.
It rotates.
Rotate, give you the options,
exactly.
And there's something else to work with. But lastly on Pokemon is Masters got a proper official trailer, showed a few of the little gameplay elements and talked about them and what it entails. The trailer's quite interesting, quite fun to watch. Brock looks so weird in it, but he's changed a lot since I used to watch Pokemon.
Yeah.
The game is sort of 3-on-3 battles, and then you create your own team of three Pokemon as well. Yeah, I haven't really got too many views on this.
I always enjoyed like the duo battles in the other games, so it'd be nice to get maybe like
there was trio battles in Gen 5. Coincidentally, that's the same gen again. They did bring in like rotating triple battles, and then in Gen 6 I think there was just straight up triple battles. They don't work in a competitive state, sort of like at like competitive levels for the main stage RPG games. I think it's quite cool that they're creating a separate game for it, and obviously you can, like it's saying, like Masters is about fighting all of the like gym leaders, and like Red and Gary and Blue and Lance and Cynthia. You're going to start fighting the Elite Four members. It's quite a cool way, and if they can implement it well and differently, no doubt this will have some sort of payable loot box sort of mechanic-y things in it, or microtransactions is definitely the word I should have used there. That will be available in there to put in, and it's going to be implemented, which is fine, but at least they're creating a different way to experience these triple battles, rather than trying to implement it into the main game and it not working very well.
Yeah, definitely. And it just condensed down like the big fights that people are interested in. So having to go through every single random little fucking person who just pops up and chucks a cat up at you and you just stamp on it and walk away. It'll be more condensed, proper battles that people might be more interested in.
Yeah. Lastly, the import tax on consoles may potentially be going up in the United States, which chances are, is us being in the UK, it'll affect us somehow.
Yeah, we'll get the backlash off anything, don't we?
So, Nintendo, Microsoft, and Sony all wrote a joining letter. So the three leading video gaming companies all wrote letter to Donald Trump discussing their distaste, opposition,
and their effects and implementations of it.
Yeah, they're saying how it's going to affect the video game market. So basically what Trump is trying to do is he's trying to create more of an import tax on the video game consoles themselves, because it's less than about the data and like the files and games, so it falls under probably a different category. And this obviously comes along with the fact that he's trying to implement more charges to China. You can sort of see where you're going with it. Now, the fact that Microsoft is a part of this letter is obviously quite important, because Microsoft obviously is in-house, that's in America. So whilst the charges may not directly affect them as much, obviously China might be making their consoles, might cause those sorts of things. I'm not smart enough in politics to know what piece of a computer qualifies to have this extra import tax, but to put it in a basic way is that video game consoles would go up 25% in price. So
Switch, that's a massive jump.
Yeah, so Switch would go from £280, would then go up to £350. Yeah, that was quick maths.
God damn.
So it got up to around about £350. And then, so what they sent this letter off saying is basically how the implementation of these sorts of charges is going to affect video games, because at the end of the day, companies are there to make money. As much as the Japanese, especially for this, as much as the Japanese are sort of going, they make a lot of video games as art form or entertainment. They're not trying to rinse people for as much money as possible, like, say, for example, EA is, because they're trying to be a little bit more genuine and a little bit more honest with it. As much as they are trying to do that, they are still a company at the end of the day, and they still do have targets and quotas to hit.
Have to pay, yeah.
So when this 25% implementation comes in, you don't look at this as a 25% tax on the company themselves. It's going to end up coming back down to the people. So people like me and you will end up having to pay more for these consoles. It may not be the full 25%, but we will end up having to pay more to cover these extra costs there. And obviously a lot of this money ends up going back then to America. So then the argument, this is where politics gets too confusing for me, because then the argument then is that America is then placing these import taxes so that America itself can get more money. But essentially where they're getting the money from is then getting the money more from the public rather than from these import charges from Japan. So do you see the sort of confusion and confliction?
Yeah.
So their concern is that essentially these price hikes are going to end up putting consumers off in America more so than it's going to stop the companies in Japan making money.
Exactly.
And that's where it gets all way too confusing.
If there's a price something goes up, that it's always the buyer that then pays the difference. Very, very rarely will a company then cover the cost of a sudden increase or something.
No.
Because
Nintendo are normally quite good at that. Like, so when the Wii U had its massive flop, it was terrible. The Wii U was. When all of that happened, the CEO of Nintendo took a massive pay cut because of his mistake and whatnot with it. He felt as though he was responsible. Japan are normally really good like that.
Oh,
This is what we're saying is that they would still work well and hard to try and keep it as good as possible. Again, this is just Japan. They treat customers like people. Unlike EA,
they've got this real world sense that other companies just don't seem to have.
Yeah, so they would try and keep it as fair as possible, but you do have to remember at the end of the day they are still a company. And whilst this is not a certified, already implemented tax scheme that's definitely 100% going forwards, obviously companies and a lot of people need to be fighting towards this sort of thing, because I can see where Trump is coming from with his import tax. Again, we're not going to go into who we like in politics wise. Like, you've got to look at things for the realistic reasons, and the reason he feels as though that there should be these import taxes is because a lot of companies can take advantage of America for so and so reason. Again, I'm not getting into it. However, it seems like this is something that's going to for video gamers, is it could end up doing a lot of damage.
Definitely at that price increase.
Noticeable. If they lose a couple of million sales on units just because of that, I mean, it would be more than a couple of million, I would have thought, at that sort of price change.
People will not be buying consoles on release because of this.
So bear it in mind, really.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, we managed to drag out what seemed like a very slow news week. We managed to make that relatively long. I'm not sure about interesting. It's all quite boring news, really, isn't it?
Edit and post.
Edit and post.
Yeah.
Like, add fireworks.
Cut your ramblings.
Cut my ramblings. I didn't moan too much.
Nah, you were controlled.
No, contained. Just don't buy EA. That's all you have to do. As long as you don't buy EA, I don't really mind.
That's been like the...
If I want to go down for anything in history, I want to be known as that guy that didn't like EA. Have it at my funeral.
Done.
Put it on my casket. This casket was not funded by EA. Wants nothing to do with EA. Either way, have anything you want to add at all? Oh! Games that are coming to PlayStation and Xbox this week.
Oh, on the...
Tuesday.
The free releases.
We forgot about that.
We did
now,
indeed.
PlayStation, as we've said in the past, have not had the greatest history with their free games that they release, and they've not excelled this month either. So what they've done this month is that they went for Horizon Chase Turbo. Unfortunately, it is not at all linked to Horizon Zero Dawn. It's a racing game. It's an indie game, and it's got good reviews. People like it. It's fun to play. it's not what people want when they hear about the latest games coming. And then the other one that PlayStation have is Pro Evolution Soccer 2019, which is great if you're a football fan. I'm not a massive football fan, so it doesn't interest me, unfortunately. It's a good way to go against EA because it's not made by EA, so I completely support it as a football choice, and it's much better than FIFA. But I get the feeling, again, this is the thing, is you're too far into 2019 to start trying to push these games when the 2020 games are normally coming out in late September, early October.
Yeah.
So PlayStation this month, weak, and people are still going to be upset because of all the price hikes and loss of games here, there, and everywhere. So they
more for less.
Yeah. Take us through it, Luke. What has Xbox got?
So we have Inside, which looks like a little indie game, sort of side scroller, bit of maybe a puzzler. It looks very dark looking game. Had sort of vibes looking at from like Limbo, but a little bit not quite as all black as Limbo was.
Yeah.
Then we've got a Big Crown Showdown, which I have never heard of before. Looks like a couple of cartoon looking knights, so I'm assuming some sort of party game or something along those lines. Then we've got Castlevania Symphony of the Night.
Cool.
On
That's
Xbox
good.
One and 360. That's their portable. And we've got Meet the Robinsons, the game of the film, which I'm assuming is probably...
That's something you just don't... Like, they might as well... They would have done better to leave that off the list.
Yeah, it's maybe one for the kids.
Yeah.
But
it's not even like a massive month. I mean, Castlevania is cool. I would download that and give that a play.
It's the only one I've ever sort of heard of, like the franchise of it before, so... The other ones I've never heard of before.
No.
So very indie based, as Xbox seem to do.
Yeah,
days.
which is fine. It's still not as good as their Battlefront 2 that they put out.
That was incredible. When that popped up, I was proper psyched.
Yeah. PlayStation and Xbox have not got a good month this month. It's all just still the cooldown from E3. If you realise that we haven't really spoken much, it's because there's not much to talk about. We just rabbit now.
Yeah.
Talking wise. We don't hump things.
Oh, I'm cutting that out.
Have a lovely evening, day, week. I hope you're not sweating too much in the sun. You need air-cooled controllers now so that you keep your grip.
That's a good idea.
It's already a thing.
Oh. Well, it's still a good idea.
It's still a good idea, yeah. And we'll
see you in the next one.
See you in the next one.